All right, welcome back to the channel, guys. For those of you that are new here, my name is Drew Sims, and for the past 3 years, I've been living out of my Jeep as a freelance photographer and filmmaker. And today, I'm going to be doing a very long overdue Q&A. So these questions are the most asked questions that I get across YouTube, Instagram, and just general emails that I get. I'm going to be covering things from road life in general to working as a freelance creative on the road and being able to support myself from that. And then just kind of my general experiences from living out of this Jeep for the past 3 years. I'll be honest, I've been putting this video off for a very long time. I'm not a huge fan of talking directly to the camera for extended periods of time. So I've got a very large third cup of coffee and 15 questions written down. So I'm gonna try to knock these out and do my best to answer the questions you guys have for me. So we'll jump right in with question number 1, and this is hands down the most asked question I get. If you go on any of my YouTube videos, there's dozens and dozens of these comments, DMs, and emails. You guys seem to be very interested in this road life topic, so I figured I would knock it out first, and that is, where do I go to the bathroom? So part of this lifestyle, part of living on the road, part of camping and hiking, you're gonna go to the bathroom outside. It is what it is. There's also a ton of alternatives with gas stations and rest stops and gyms, Starbucks, coffee shops, libraries. You can go to national parks and national forests. Always have large welcome centers with running water and decent bathrooms. And they also have, even on public land, these things called vault toilets. There is no running water, but it's still an actual toilet with a toilet seat. So if you guys are hesitant to get on the road just because you don't know where you're going to go to the bathroom, don't let that deter you. It's really not a huge deal. At this point, I don't stress over it. I don't even really think about it. It's just kind of part of the lifestyle. So I'm glad I knocked that out. Hopefully I won't have dozens of comments on the following YouTube videos after this, but I probably will. So question number 2, I've been getting quite a bit since my last tour video, and that is, how much does my Jeep weigh? So you guys recommended going to a garbage dump or a weigh station, and I actually found a closed truck weigh station and weighed it there. And this was on a full tank of gas, all the water loaded up, all my gear in the Jeep and me out of the Jeep, and I weighed in just under 5,900 pounds. Question number 3, do I sleep in the Jeep or do I sleep in the tent more? So during summer, it's probably a 70-30 split, 70 being the rooftop tent, or I'm backcountry camping and sleeping in a ground tent, and then 30% in the Jeep. On the other side of that, for winter, I'd say it's probably a 70-30 split in the other direction, 70 being in the Jeep and 30 being in the rooftop tent, maybe even an 80-20 split. If you guys have been watching and following along on my channel, you know I did a bunch of winter camping this past year. Definitely slept more in the rooftop tent this past year than I did the previous 2 winters. That was because it was kind of a fun challenge, but if you're trying to live on the road, I would definitely choose having an interior bed versus buying and spending the money on a rooftop tent. Rooftop tents are great, and my iCamper sets up in less than a minute, but when it's raining out, when it's cold, need to stealth camp in a city or sleeping in a rest stop or something just to get where you're going, it's a lot easier just to hop in the back of the Jeep than having to find a campground or camping on public land and having to set up the tent and break it down in the morning. It's just a lot more convenient, a lot quieter, a lot warmer. And yeah, I just think it's really important to have the ability to sleep in your vehicle, and then the extra ability to have a rooftop tent is an awesome feature. If you're only doing 2 weeks at a time, I think you can get away with a rooftop tent, but multiple months or a year on the road, I definitely think sleeping inside of the vehicle is much more important for sure. Question number 4, how do I find camping and how do I plan where I'm going next? So I have a couple main resources that I use that I'll link down below in the description. One being Ultimate Campground, iOverlander, Gaia, Park Advisor. Park Advisor is a great one. It'll show where you can overnight camp at like a Walmart or a Cabela's. I don't usually do that anymore, but when I first got on the road, it was kind of comforting to go to a spot like a Walmart where you could overnight camp. There's people in vans, there's people in RVs, there's overhead lighting, and there's a security guard going through the parking lot. So those are just comforting spots, and that's a great app for that. Probably my favorite out of the bunch, though, is an app called The Dirt. I've mentioned these guys before in previous videos. I use it a lot to find camping in national forest. You can also book campgrounds directly through the app. So with summer here, it's pretty hectic trying to find a campground, especially out in Washington right now. I feel like it's been completely full for the most part, everyone that I've gone through. So being able to book in advance has been a great feature. But honestly, the main resource that I use to help find campgrounds that you see in my vlogs where I'm like on the edge of a cliff or up on a big mountain with an awesome view is just Google Earth. So I'll use the Google Earth 3D imaging feature. So I'll go to whatever national forest or piece of public land that I'm going through, go to 3D imaging and just kind of scope out all the Forest Service roads and look for the one with the best view. Those are tough though. You'll show up and sometimes the Forest Service roads are gated off, or sometimes the trees at the area are a little bigger than they look online and you don't actually have a view. But that's a really awesome feature. Also a great feature photography in general. Just helps you scope out locations and kind of see what the lineup's going to be with the Jeep, your camp spot, and a mountain in the background or whatever it is. If you zoom in enough on Google Earth, you can sometimes even see fire rings. So you can know that it's a designated camp spot on public land, which is a pretty awesome feature in my opinion. As far as planning out where I'm headed next on the road and kind of how I plan my trips, I do it very loosely. I don't like to have a strict plan. If I'm going to the Oregon coast, I'll have maybe 10 locations from south to north written down that I think look cool. If I hit all of them, great. If I hit one or two, that's fine as well. I don't like to push myself into a strict plan. When I go to a spot like I'm at right now, this is a national forest, I usually have 4 or 5 campgrounds picked out and those GPS coordinates saved in my notes. And then I have Google Maps downloaded or the Dirt downloaded so I can use those maps offline, which is super helpful when you don't have service. When I first got on the road, I initially planned to do 4 months, and trying to plan that was just extremely stressful and way too overwhelming and just kind of freaked me out thinking, how can I do 4 months when I can't even get through a week? So that's why I plan in 1 to 2 week increments. It just makes it a lot easier to handle, and thinking, oh, if I can just get through this week, I know where I'm going to be for this week, and then I'll plan the next and the next after that. It makes it a little less stressful. Question number 5, if I could go back 3 years and do it all over again, would I still do a Jeep? And is there anything that I would change about the build? So if I could go back 3 years, I would 100% do the Jeep again. So for me, I wanted to be able to camp as much as possible, be outside as much as I could, and not be restricted by a low clearance vehicle or only having 2-wheel drive. I know a lot of people living on the road work full time, so if you were doing 3 to 4 days working remote, having a van seems like the much better option. I also know you can buy a 4x4 van, but I wasn't trying to spend $100,000 and definitely didn't have the money to invest in a van. So for me, the Jeep was just the better option. One major con of the Jeep that is a major pro of having a van is just having an interior space to chill in. You can't really hang out in the Jeep. I can sit in the passenger seat and have a little desk set up, but trying to work for 8 hours is super unrealistic out of that front seat. So having a van, you get the ability to cook inside and chill inside and have an editing station inside, and that is something that I wish I had in the Jeep, but it's a good trade-off in my opinion to be able to have a high clearance 4-wheel drive vehicle. Again, it just kind of forces me to get outside, which is what I personally wanted out of living on the road. The only thing I could think of changing in the Jeep if I could go back would be maybe lowering the bed a little bit and downsizing the closet a bit. The closet's a cool feature and people love to see that, but I think I could have utilized that space a little bit better. So maybe cutting the closet in half or maybe just even getting rid of it. And lowering the bed would have been nice just to be able to sit up a little more comfortably in the Jeep when I'm sleeping in there. I can sit up now, I can work on my laptop, but it's just a little crammed. So I wish I would have lowered everything just like 2 inches or maybe even just an inch would have made a huge difference. So this next question's a pretty big one and I might do a whole separate video on this moving forward. So I'm gonna try my best to give you kind of a short and condensed direct answer, and that is, how do I make money on the road? So in short, I work full-time as a freelance photographer and filmmaker. I work directly with brands creating content for their social media channels, or I help promote those brands on my social channels with either photo or video on TikTok, Instagram, and YouTube. And then I also do a good deal of work completely off of social media where I'm creating photos or video advertisements that companies are licensing from me, and I'm getting paid through that. They're using that for print or web use. I'm not going to dive too deep into the exact finances and cost of living on the road. A friend of mine, Christian Schaefer, also is a photographer and lives full-time out of a van. Just recently did a video that is done in a super well organized and in-depth way and explains it much better than I could, so I'll link her video somewhere in the description or somewhere in this video for you guys to check out if you want a bit of a more in-depth look at the finances of living on the road. A couple other income sources that I have aside from sponsored work is YouTube. I get paid through YouTube monetization. So when you watch my video and you see an advertisement run, I get a kickback from that, and I get paid for creating and having that ad space, and companies buy out ad space to market themselves and run ads during videos to an audience such as you guys, and I make money from that. Also through affiliate programs, so through Amazon affiliates, if you guys use my links and buy any products from Amazon, I get money back from that, as well as a couple other brands that I work with that I have affiliate program deals with. Then I sell merchandise through stickers and t-shirts. That's been a very small portion of income and honestly just kind of fun to experiment with, and for anyone that's bought some, very exciting, and I really appreciate the support. I also used to sell prints, and I'm reworking my print site right now, but that used to be and has always kind of been a small portion of income, which has been nice. And then like I already mentioned, I do the sponsored brand work and also licensing photos and videos directly to companies. A great example of sponsored work and kind of an explanation of what that is leads me into this video sponsor, and that is
Storyblocks.
Storyblocks is an affordable subscription-based website that gives you access to over 1 million stock assets, including stock video, photo, and even audio. Storyblocks is a great option to be able to get clips that you normally would not be able to get, whether that's due to time constraints, a smaller budget on a project, or you just don't have the equipment and resources necessary to get the clips that you want. For me in particular, a great example of that is getting drone footage in national parks. Obviously, drones are a huge part of my YouTube, a huge part of my filmmaking, and kind of what I enjoy to do the most. Unfortunately, in national parks, you aren't allowed to fly drones, or you can, but it's super difficult to get the permits for it. So with Storyblocks, I'm able to get high-quality, licensed, and legal drone footage from those national parks to help create and complete the vision that I have on the project that I'm working on. Storyblocks also offers enterprise licensing, meaning that they offer media packages to larger agencies or larger teams versus just an individual as myself. So make sure you guys visit storyblocks.com/DrewSims or just hit the link down below in the description to check it out. But big thank you to Storyblocks for sponsoring this video. Quick break, had to grab a jacket. It's cold right now. It's like middle of August in Washington, and I'm got a bunch of layers on right now, which is odd. But back to it. The first year on the road, I really didn't make much money. I had saved up about 6 months worth of cash from a job that I was doing. It was basically a desk job in college that I worked the last year and a half, and put all of that into the Jeep and then all of that away for, like I said, about 4 to 6 months on the road. After that, I made a little bit of money off of doing prints here and there, mostly just to family and friends. The first year I did a bit of real estate photography as well, with some real estate video work too, and that just helped pay the bills and helped road life continue on. At the end of year one, I posted a Jeep walkthrough video on YouTube, and that one ended up blowing up and honestly bringing in a very large source of income for me and really pushing me and allowing me to be able to continue life on the road. That also showed me the potential that is in YouTube and that people can make a living off of it. So I started focusing a little more on YouTube around year two. At the beginning of year two, I also worked with a company called Jeepwave.com. Jeepwave was owned by Jeep, and it was a site that they were looking to launch. Unfortunately, the site never launched, but for about 4 months, I was creating content for them through blogs, photo work, video work, and posting everything to this site that was in beta at the time. That was a really cool opportunity because it gave me an insight as to, how things work working with a larger brand. I'd worked with a few small brands on Instagram, but nothing the size of Jeep and Jeepwave.com. Kind of piggybacking off this question, I get asked a lot, especially through emails, about how do you start working with brands, I'm a photographer and I want to try to do this full time. Do you have any tips? Honestly, the biggest thing is just going to be having patience. It really has taken me 3 years to consistently be able to find work with brands. And in the beginning, I would blast out a portfolio every 4 to 6 months. And now I'm getting reached out a little more by brands. I'm still directly reaching out to companies that I want to work with, but more so now I'm getting approached, which has been a cool change of pace. I also think it's really important to try to figure out who you are in the space and what makes your work unique versus other people. Figure out what separates you from the other 10,000 people that have photographer on their Instagram bio. And these companies are getting hundreds of emails a month from people wanting to work with them and trying to figure out why they would choose you over other people. I also think being very specific in your pitch to these companies is super important. You emailing them and sending a pitch where you're saying, I'm going to offer you X, Y, and Z. This is what I can do. This is what I want to do for your brand. This is what I'm offering you that I can do better than other people. But like I said, I don't have all the answers. I'm still figuring out what my niche is and what makes me unique as a creative. But these are just things that I have found helpful. Next question, I think this is number 8, I'm not sure. Best advice for getting on the road. So my best piece of advice would just don't overthink it. I think a lot of people get up in their heads that they have to have all this past experience and be a seasoned camper and hiker and love the outdoors to get into this lifestyle. I grew up in Florida. I really didn't do a lot of hiking when I was a kid, and I'd only gone camping twice. I'd only set up a tent twice out west before I moved full-time into my Jeep. Anybody can do what I'm doing. It just takes the right mindset, and I'm a big believer in learning, trial by error. I learn very well hands-on. I really disliked school. I graduated with a real estate and finance degree, which I'm obviously putting to great use now. But getting on the road, you learn as you go, and it's just part of it. I also think a big part of that as well is just setting realistic expectations. You see Instagram, you see YouTube, and my YouTube is even a fault of that. It shows road life as a super magical and wonderful place, and every day is an epic camp spot, and I'm always doing awesome hikes. But the reality of it, there's a lot of downtime, and a lot of it sucks. The road has an extreme lack of routine and consistency, and that's just part of the lifestyle. And again, I think social media sometimes portrays it as this wonderful thing to do, but it's really tough at times. So as long as you're setting realistic expectations, you understand that those parts, those low moments always lead you to really appreciate and enjoy the high moments when you are at an awesome camp spot or when you make friends on the road and when you're doing awesome hikes. It makes it all worth it to go through the crummy times about living on the road. So going off of that question, I also get asked a lot if I get lonely on the road. The simple answer to that is yes, of course I get lonely on the road. I spend a lot of time on my own and camping by myself and living this lifestyle by myself, and it could be difficult at times. But loneliness is such a funny word to me because I'm a very introverted person. I don't even know if I consider loneliness. I almost consider it solitude. I really enjoy being on my own, and I'm not going to be living out of this Jeep for the rest of my life. I don't plan on living on the road for the rest of my life. And someday soon I'll have a wife and I'll have a family and I'll have a much more stable job that has a little more consistency and routine with it. Hopefully still within the photography and filmmaking space, but much more structured than what my life is now. So when I do feel loneliness and when I feel that, low moments and feeling down, I remind myself that someday I'll look back and would do anything to be alone on the road. And so one of the hardest portions I'm saying is the lack of consistency and the loneliness, but that can also be seen as, in my opinion, one of the best parts about living on the road is the freedom to just do whatever you want and go wherever you want and experience places on your own time and not have to report to anybody. Obviously, the more I get into filmmaking and photography and growing this as a business, it's become a little more structured and I'm not able to have as much freedom as I used to. But there still is so much freedom in what I do, and that is hands down the best part about living on the road is waking up in Utah on Monday and it's 100 degrees and the weather's going to be stormy and hot, and packing everything up and driving 14 hours to Washington just because I can. And just being on your own time and being alone could be a really awesome thing and a really awesome experience to have while living on the road. All right, last couple questions here. Why don't I post more, and will I ever post weekly? So I will never be a weekly vlogger. I love shooting the cinematic vlogs. It's fun. I can be creative. It's fun to edit those and put those together. But the thought of having a camera running and showing you guys every aspect of my life sounds absolutely miserable. So hats off to the people that do it. Hats off to the people that put out weekly vlogs, or I know there's been people that put out daily vlogs, which is just insane to me. For me, part of living on the road is the enjoyment of it. Part of living on the road is keeping a lot of things to myself. Some of my best memories on the road have been when I'm just enjoying the moment and when I'm just by myself. And the cinematic vlogs take a long time to put together. And again, I love doing those, but they probably take 3 to 4 days to shoot. And then from importing them to exporting to uploading probably takes 5 to 7 days. So in total, you're looking at like 8 to 10 days to get one of these cinematic vlogs out. And I'm a big believer in quality over quantity. So I can guarantee I'll never be a weekly vlogger. All right, and last question of the Q&A. How much longer do I plan on living on the road? So I've got some big life changes coming up here that I'm going to address in a later video, so I won't give too much away. But this big life change I think is going to help me to be able to put a lot more into this channel, to be able to grow as a photographer and a filmmaker and grow my business. And I've loved the last 3 years. Living out of this Jeep has been insane, and I wouldn't trade it for anything. But lately, especially the last 6 months, it's become a lot harder for me to take on bigger client projects or put more into this YouTube channel when I have to spend 7 days straight editing in a coffee shop and sitting in my front seat for 6 hours in the passenger seat with the little desk set up. And it just become a lot more difficult for me the more I wanted to get into filmmaking and the more I want to grow this photography business. It's tough to do it on the road out of a Jeep. So I won't give too much away. I won't say too much, but some big life changes that I'm really excited to share coming forward. So yeah, I think that pretty much wraps up the Q&A, guys. If you guys enjoyed the video, make sure to give it a thumbs up. And if you're not already, make sure to subscribe. If there's any questions you guys still have for me that I did not cover in this video, make sure to drop them in the comments down below, and I'll do my best to answer those. But yeah, thank you guys for watching. I'm happy we're done with this Q&A. Like I said, I'm not a huge fan of talking directly to the camera for long periods of time. So I hope you guys enjoyed it. I hope it wasn't too painful to watch. And yeah, thanks for the support as always, and I'll see you next time.